We are wrapping up the Pauline letters, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, Philemon, and then we're going to stop there and we're going to go to the Gospel of Mark. The Pastoral Epistles, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon, they are really personal letters, but I think it's important that we understand they're not personal letters. Although they're personal letters written to individuals, they were meant to be read to the church. And so we have this kind of stand-in thing that's going on, and this is actually pretty common. We see it in Luke and Acts, where Luke writes to a person named Theophilus, but that person actually stands in for the church. It's actually being written to the church. And in 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, and Philemon, what we really have is we have the Apostle Paul writing to the leadership of the churches. So he's writing to Timothy and Titus and Philemon, but he's writing to the leadership of the churches across the ages. And so it's direction to the churches, and that's important. Once we finish that, then you're going into the Gospel of Mark. And the reason that we're going to the Gospel of Mark there is now we're going to be looking at Peter. So we've had the very Jewish, the most Jewish parts of the New Testament, Matthew and then James and Hebrews. And then we've had the Pauline part of the New Testament, Luke and Paul's epistles. And now we're going to do the Petrine, the Peter part of the Bible, which is the Gospel of Mark, which tradition says was dictated by the Apostle Peter, and it doesn't have a name on it, so there's no reason we couldn't accept that. And it is very Petrine. It is very much like Peter's writings. And then we have 1st and 2nd Peter. And 1st and 2nd Peter, when we read those, you will notice a marked difference, no pun intended, between the Gospel of Mark, which is a narrative about the life of Jesus, familiar things that Peter would have been an eyewitness of, and Mark would have taken, John Mark, who appears in the book of Acts, would have taken and refined and put together in the book. Then we have 1 Peter, which Peter writes probably with the assistance of Silas. He calls him Silvanus, but it's the same name. So that Silas, who was a companion of Paul. And if you remember Paul's first missionary journey, he goes with Barnabas, and Barnabas brings his nephew, John Mark. John Mark turns back. He doesn't continue in the journey. And so then Paul goes with Silas, and Silas spends Paul's second and third missionary journeys. Silas is with Paul on those. It appears that Silvanus or Silas then left Paul when Paul went to Jerusalem, and he goes with Peter. And he serves as Peter's what we call amanuensis. That is someone who listens to someone dictate and transcribes it, but also smooths it out, makes word choices, and those kind of things. So it's kind of a blend of a scribe and an editor. It's very common in the ancient world. And so 1 Peter is very refined, very actually Pauline in its structure. It's kind of structured like Paul's letters. And then 2 Peter is kind of sloppy in comparison. And the difference is, I think, and again, I can't prove this beyond the shadow of a doubt, but I think Silvanus either dies or is called away to something, or maybe Peter sent him on a mission. And 2 Peter is written by Peter. And it has some messiness you would expect from an old Galilean fisherman working in his second or third language when he writes in Greek. It's not by any stretch of the imagination unreadable in Greek, but it is not as beautiful. It's not as stylized as 1 Peter, and certainly not as the Gospel of Mark, which is actually a very, very refined Greek text.